So if I recollect, in our last session, we had spoken up until a point where Sanjay sir, you were introduced and inducted, let's say, at that peak where Bhuiyan was stationed. And then it was the move towards dismantling the Pakistanis from their post. We're just interested in that chapter and your personal experiences at that point of time.
Okay, before we go there, I just want to tell you a little more.
Yes.
Firstly, about the morale part of it. On the 29th, when this debacle took place, and we lost all these men, about one officer and 18 other ranks, I was told to withdraw that platoon where Anant Bhuiyan was. It should be withdrawn. I think everybody got scared, losing so many lives higher up. But I put my foot down and I told my adjutant that no withdrawal will take place without my specific personal orders to that commander, post commander. So 29th we didn't withdraw, 30th we didn't withdraw, 1st we didn't withdraw. I think it was on the 2nd that the brigade commander and the GOC visited me. I hope the date is correct. That we can check out from the book. When they visited me, while we were having a discussion, and again that they possibly wanted to investigate about the debacle and why I have not withdrawn the people so far.
So the date of visit as per the book is 30 May.
30 May, okay. So we'll talk about 30 May. And so that is the day when they were visiting me. Luckily for me, the Pakistan started firing and Sanjay, who had taken over that post by that time, he responded to the fire and there were a couple of casualties on the other side. The moment I heard the fire, I spoke to Sanjay and he told me that there have been a couple of casualties and I told the GOC and the brigade commander, that sector commander, that this is what has happened and we should not lose this post just because that debacle had taken place.
So just explain, there have been casualties on whose side, Indian side or Paki side?
Paki side, okay. That you can explain in detail who are the people who got killed. I think one officer was injured and one Jawan got killed. And when I told them this, they agreed with me that we will not withdraw because the biggest demoralizing factor would have been the withdrawal of this platoon. And we were talking about morale. And once we knew that we are going to stay there and continue forward from there, the morale was again up. Okay, Sanjay, you can take on from here.
Okay, sir. Okay, so gentlemen, please refer, if you have the book in front of you, I do want you to see this. This is on page 92, where on the top, the starting of the second paragraph there, it says that 30th May, the GOC and sector commander visited me, meaning Brigadier Khanna, on the Aden base. Now, what had happened was that the moment Second Lieutenant Anant Bhuiyan was inducted as the initial swift measure by the commanding officer, and obviously the commanding officer could understand the criticality of this ridgeline. And yesterday I have forwarded, accessed for the first time in my life and forwarded to both sides, that is your team side to Tanmay and to Brigadier Khanna, 3 photographs of the Gyongla Ridge. So I wonder if you have them handy. Otherwise, I will share the screen on those. Does anybody have them handy?
Let's look at your screen, sir. Did you send me Gyongla or Gori Chen? I was confused there.
Okay, I did send Gori Chen also. And here it is. So Gori Chen was separate. Now can you see a smudgy little photograph on your screens?
The Gyeongla overview, yes.
Okay. So now this is the Siachen Glacier. If you follow my pointer, the thick white line. This is the G3 as we used to call it because of the long names Lagrongma, Lagoma, Gyeongla, etc. And this was therefore G3 for simplicity. This is the G3 glacier.
Okay.
And this, as you can see, is a different color in this satellite image. This is because this is the moraine. You know, at the end of the glacier, there is a lot of rock which has also come down with the ice. It's not all that pristine as movie makers always make it out to be. In fact, the snout of the glacier is a very dirty place aesthetically. So 19 Kumaon Base Battalion Headquarters, which later evolved and was expanded into a Siachen base camp, was generally in this area after the snout. And that is why you see that the river, the blue thickness starts from here. Though when I expand this, you will see that the blue is more. Now focusing on to G3, notice this curve. This is the ridgeline we are talking about. Notice that there is a height over here, and we were on this ridgeline, Pakis were on this ridgeline, and now I will take you to a blow up of this, which is blurred in its bigger detail, which is already clear from the previous ones. So this is the curve of the G3. This is a height which we held. There was a height called 5385, which has not found mention in our discussion so far. I must acknowledge that it was Lieutenant Sudhansh Verma, who has just died 4 months ago during Corona times, though not of Corona. He was here at 5385. Now, I do not remember where exactly we were on this. The enemy was here. Possibly this is the saddle which separated me finally over here in the post that I had captured later. And when they are talking of Gyeongla, it is here as per the map. And if you see the earlier picture, Chumik, as per this, is right next to it. This is Chumik, Kangdi. So Chumik, Kangdi, Gyeongla are here right next to each other as per this. Brigadier Khanna, would you like to clarify the orientation so far?
Yeah, actually, I would say Chubik Kangdi is wrongly marked. It is the next hill along the same ridge.
Next hill in which o'clock direction?
Towards the north, 12 and a half. You see,
Okay, so where it is
you
marked, you go about 1 o'clock direction as in the direction of the ridge broadly to the northeast. That is where Brigadier Khanna is saying that. Now, possibly, is this what you're saying is Chumik Kangdi?
Yes, yes.
Okay, fine. Anything
and
on?
The glacier flowing from it towards the left as we see it,
This
is the Chubik Glacier.
Okay. Now, anything on our deployment, I'm going to move my pointer along the ridge. You have to tell me where is 0.5705. I had sent these day before yesterday.
Yeah.
Or was it yesterday? Where is 0.7? So you say stop and you say move left, move right. I will do that.
Move right, move right, move right. It should be somewhere here.
Okay.
And if you go from Gyeongla absolutely north, then you find 0.5385.
Okay, that is this?
Yes.
Okay.
And if from Gyeongla you go left and climb up towards 10 o'clock direction, the next feature is what we were trying to, no, actually it will be further. Yeah, this and
Is this discussion relevant to you, Kabir? Otherwise, we won't waste time.
I mean, just to get a visual thing, roughly, not in a detail, but we've got the sort of.
Okay. So the point I'm trying to make over here is the fact that this is the ridgeline under contention. Whether it was the India-Pakistan face-off was here or it was across this is irrelevant. And Brigadier Khanna feels that it would be here. I would go by what he feels because his overview and perception would be better. We were too busy trying to A, survive, and B, kill the other guy to help us survive. So the point is that from 5385, Lieutenant Sudhansh Verma, whose name has not come up so far, he had a unique advantage and the vision of the CO to send him up there because he could see somewhat behind the enemy only along the ridgeline and understand that there is nothing that you can do in the defilated side. These are all steep escarpments. And this has all got at least 50 feet, 50 feet of snow. So the movement is only along the ridgeline. So which Sudhansh could see from here, Lieutenant Sudhansh Verma. Now
not that far off. It is a peak closer coming down 7 o'clock from where you were pointing.
You are saying this?
Peak.
No,
yes.
sir, it is not this. Because this, I have blown this up and seen the contours. It is not this. He was very far. He was not on the same ridge. And he was not threatened when we were fired upon. And that is why he could watch carefully what is happening. So it is not this. I also examined this, that whether it could be this. After all, it is all 38 years ago or 37 years ago. So it is not this, that is sure. And in any case, if you see heights, he was at a comparable height to us. This is a few thousand feet lower than the ridgeline. And this ridgeline, this is 5705 area. So 5705, 5375 is where, 5385 is where he was. So to my opinion, it is more likely here. And there was another height. So I don't think it is too close to us. He was not so close, but well, it could be, we leave it at that. It doesn't matter to the web series production.
We basically figured out roughly what position.
The orientation is clear to you.
Yes.
Even if you take it this, which is fine, the point is that from this side, you can see what I cannot see sitting here. Now, so much for the orientation. Now, if you go to page 92 of the book, on the third paragraph, it says, this talk is of 30th May and Brigadier Khanna also just mentioned that the casualties happened when the firing was going on. Let me set the time frame on this part clear. When Second Lieutenant Bhuiya moved up, within a few days, less than a week, maybe 3 days or so, I was ordered to move up and then only told that because Bhuiya was reporting that there was mortar shelling on him, and contrary to what Brigadier Khanna says, we were not in a dominating position. We were on equal positions both sides. There was enemy fire upon us at 5705 and hence the need, what I was pointing to you like this, that from here where Bhuiya was, you needed to go to a place slightly higher, which was more at par with the enemy, and there was a saddle in between. And that saddle afforded the breather between the eyeball to eyeball. The Pakis would come, assuming it is here where Brigadier Khanna is saying, if the Pakis were here and Bhuiya was here, I was to move forward and therefore cover this gap. Pakis would come here and occupy it by day. This meeting with the sector commander took place on 30th May. I have reached here on around 30th May, 29th May or 27th May, I don't remember. The fact which is recorded correctly, not in the book, but otherwise, that I attacked this place forward 300 meters on night 2nd, 3rd June 1984. The total distance was about 300 meters, and it took me the better part of 3.5 hours at night with 8 men to go there. So there was no melodramatic battle happening at my height, which was for want of any trig height. There was no point marked there. It was called OP Hill. OP is observation post, which is always ahead of the main post. So my post was called OP Hill. Later, 19 Kumaon made some efforts. You've spoken to Brigadier Rajendra Singh, who played a very good role in this, to get OP Hill renamed as Kumaon Post, and the side where Pundir had gone to be renamed officially as Pundir Post. But courtesy the influence and the spade work done by people who thought otherwise, that never materialized. So OP Hill did not, my boys used to refer to it as Aggie's Post, which is evident in the book on page 103, the top Devanagari transcription given by my radio operator to Brigadier Khanna. That is then Lance Naik Ram Meher Singh. Later he got a Shaurya Chakra, etc. and he's the guy I did the surgery on. So the point is that on night 2nd, 3rd June, I moved and captured the forward post which the Pakis occupied. At that time, I did not know, when I say Pakis, it was the Pakistani para-commandos, it was the Asgar force, and a possibly young captain like me by the name of Captain Nabil Khan was my counterpart. It is coincidental that I have also done parachuting. So I am not a red maroon beret, but I have done parachuting. So this happened on 2nd, 3rd.
So you had
now once you take over and occupy their post, and I had given you this diagram yesterday, that the Paki side was sloping and our side was vertical. Remember?
Yep.
Yes.
Both on OP Hill, my now newly captured post, and 400 meters or whatever it was is their main post. Like now behind me, I had 5705 as my main post. 300 meters behind me, where people had been staying for the last week plus. Of course, now on OP Hill, I stayed for 77 days, of which I have given you the certificate. The proof of this also is when you convert meters to feet, 5705 translates to 19,017 meters. And I just realized my certificate says 19,270 feet, which means OP Hill. The point I'm trying to make is, if the features were like this, I had no place to stay. But when you come to the Pakistani side, Pakistani stay was comfortable and they had an escarpment in front of them. Now look at the logistic problem. Understood? Now look at the blessing in disguise. Every problem has a silver lining. The silver lining is, it was very difficult to bomb me or bomb 5705 and get a bomb to land there. Another meter, it will land 5 meters below. And 5 meters below, if a bomb lands 5 meters away from me, the chances are high that I won't die. On the Paki side, it was the other way around, it was sloping, so we could inflict more casualties. This is important from the cinematic point of view also. And yes, there was bombing later. After I moved forward, Bhuiya was moved back and one Major Mahajan took over the post, ordered by Brigadier Khanna. The moment Brigadier Khanna left around the 27th of June or so, Major Mahajan then developed a chest pain under the new CO and thereafter that post was not officer held. 0.5705. Now coming to what exactly happened on night 2nd, 3rd June in that 3.5 hours movement, etc. The CEO had given me full freedom to choose my team, and that is where I'll tell you about things like Dirty Dozen. You need a combination of innate character qualities which do not include the stereotype best soldiers. Some of the bhangadis are very good. Some of the discipline types are very good. But yes, you need very good professionals to fire, because firing is a challenge in the best of times, and accuracy of firing in high altitude is a totally different ball game. These weapons had never been fired operationally, any weapon, even a normal rifle. So psychologically, the ground reality is World War I, II, and all battles thereafter have proved that the soldier fires for the psychological comfort of the duk 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 to no effect. In fact, there are proofs of various armies of the world, very few have gone into battle, where the soldier is firing like this with his head inside the trench so that his head doesn't get a bullet, and he's firing like this. So I had this hand-picked selection of 8 men. It was a Kumaoni company. Earlier, I think it was mentioned C&D, Brigadier Khanna sir. It was B&D, which was on Siachen, C&D, which was on Turtuk. So these were people from Bravo company. Charlie company was actually in Turtuk. And General Rajinder, then Major Rajinder, was company commander, Charlie company in Turtuk in that Urdulup glacier. So this involved not knowing, and mind you, today we can say we occupied it. Today we can say there was no melodramatic hand-to-hand fight. In the final 10 meters, we all had our bayonets in our hand because we did not know what we will face on the other side. We were fully prepared that there will be pup tents there. This small fact is forgotten. We were prepared for a hand-to-hand fight because we couldn't see there. This Sudhanshu's post here, as Brigadier Khanna says, or here, wherever, was not established by then. I'm talking on night 2nd, 3rd June 1984. So when you are going up, facing crevices, and before this, on my week of building up my logistics, exactly what I need, because nobody will be able to come and give me food. I don't have water. To make water, I need kerosene oil, because you cannot suck ice and create the minimum of 2 liters of water that a body requires. You cannot suck enough ice during the whole day. So you need kerosene firstly to make water from ice so that you can drink some fluid. And then you need kerosene to cook something to eat. So we had got whatever we could get. And when you move ahead, you are going for an attack. You are hoping to capture them sleeping so that you can sort them out, because I told you it takes 20 minutes almost to dress up to get out. Now, even if you do it in a panic, so my things were very clear. I've had these 2-3 days to relive those largely unpleasant memories, that we should all be on one side. We should not get into our own crossfire. We should not be so close that if somebody sprays a bullet, 3 of us die. 3 of us means 3 out of 9. 33% of us are dead or injured. And injured is worse, because if a guy is injured, I need 2 more men to look after him. And I'll be one of those looking after, because I know something about operational first aid. So you are going for an attack. It is Durga Mata Kalika Maya smiling upon us that there were no tents on the other side when we reached there. And obviously when you reach there and next morning they find that there is something, because they can also see some of it from this side, from there, whatever on the next ridge line they would have had, they come to know that you've come there. I had no thing of putting the Indian flag there and anything else. I wanted time to be able to settle down, find a place where I can put a 4 feet by 6 feet tent and put 3 of these tents. And that was a challenge. We were 9 men, myself and 8 more. So we required a minimum of the 3. Ultimately, we put 4 because 3 for the men and 1 for me was put ultimately. We were able to dig into the ice and create not a cave, but an enclave. Now you are expecting, obviously, we don't know that they are para commandos, but grant the enemy his due, they will evict you. They are well settled 300-400 meters further east, whether it is here or here, wherever. Most probably this would be it. Because just remember, the scale is given in the bottom right of the picture. I have not cut the scale out so that it will help you. If you see the bottom right of the map, you will get the scale. This movement involves a silence. You cannot have your ice axe hitting a rock. Tung! That is the sound which comes. You cannot afford that sound. You cannot afford to talk because luckily the night was non-stormy. If it's a blizzard, you can't move. But the advantage of a blizzard is that even if in half an hour you can move, say 50 meters or 100 meters, nobody can hear you. But the chances are you will get swept away. And luckily it was not a blizzard night. And the temperatures that time there are about -40 or so. And when we keep talking, including me, of 21,000 feet, the actual height was 19,270. Even I am guilty of saying 21,000 feet. The actual height there was 19,270 feet. Confirmed to me by the certificate that I have got. Yes, please, Tanmay.
At that point of time, did you have an idea as to how many, what was the strength of the Pakistan,
Okay, no idea. Nothing could be seen. What would our people sitting on own side anywhere to the north of where we were see? Sab ek do aadmi harkat karte dikhe. Now you don't know, is it ek do out of 5, 10, 20? But military sense tells you that sustainability is an equal challenge for both sides. There are no supermen on either side. So it cannot be more than 10 men. And 10 men here can hold up 100 easily. Easily. And 100 the attacker can never produce. Which is exactly the equation that I'm going to talk about now after this in the webinar on China and then in the webinar on international geopolitics. Mountains favor the defender argument. They were very well entrenched. They had reached, even before we had reached 5705. Remember, they had been seen by Brigadier Channa, etc. So they had that advantage over us. We responded very quickly. Courtesy Brigadier Khanna immediately sending out people, dispersed, drawing enemy fire to find out where they were, etc.
Yeah.
Now, this 3.5 hours, you don't know where there is a crevice. You are tied up into 3 ropes of 3 men each. They are not mountaineers. You are not supposed to be in the lead. You are supposed to have a few soldiers ahead of you. That's the basic military teaching. For force, how do you choose? And remember, in this 1 week at 5705, Bhuiya had fallen to his death. Again, Kalika Maiya's benevolence, that through her benevolence, I was the instrument to save him. I'm sure you understand what a cornice is. Kabir, cornice clear?
Yes.
Cornice clear, I'm rechecking.
Yes, sir. Yes,
Okay.
yes.
So when you walk on a ridge line, there is a windward side and a leeward side, and the cornice builds onto the leeward side, which is an accumulation of snow giving you a false perception of the ridge line. And Bhuiya, being a young Joshila officer who was not trained in mountain warfare, managed to make this cardinal mistake, which even experienced mountaineers make once in a while. No fault of his. And he fell down a cornice. And the moment you fall off a cornice, there is soft snow and you're buried and nothing is found. So I had to, I'm now talking of pre-2nd June, dig with the shovels and the ice axe if we inquired, face something hard to recover him. And I remember getting out of breath and telling, खुदाई मैं ही करूंगा केवल, तुम लोग हाथ से और बेलचे से बर्फ पीछे घसीटो, खुदाई मैं ही करूंगा. Why would I say that? What if my ice axe or my shovel hits his head and I puncture his head with my ice axe? He had gone for the sentry is okay, and I'm seeing and he has fallen. So luckily I was there, and that scream that comes out, and he was not visible, he was buried under the snow. And it is Goddess's benevolence. I was an instrument that one was able to then with your gloved hands like a madman and find something and then discover, oh, this is whichever part of the body it was. I want the head so that I don't hit the ice axe on the head in trying to excavate him, because he has to breathe. He will not survive otherwise. And the next problem will be hypothermia. But the first problem is oxygen. So anyway, he survived. This is what had happened, Piche. Imagine what effect this will have on the 8 men with me who are walking into the jaws of death 300 meters ahead, expecting tents there. I told them, चुपके से जाएंगे, सब टेंटों को जब, when we reach there, it will take us 15 minutes to walk that 10 steps. And then with each tent, if we have gone very well, we'll be able to kill them. It's a different matter that later we found no tents there. The frame of mind is, you have just seen Aggie Sahab recover Bhuiya. And any one of us can fall. And that is why I have to be in front. That I'll be the guy to fall, you guys will rescue me. And I'll make sure that I try my best not to fall. I will choose a route. Because often a question is, 300 meters, you took 3.5 hours. Yes, sir, 3.5 hours. Because ultimately, if you sanitize the whole thing, what have you done? There was no enemy there. You walked across and sat down. Quite right, sir. That is how we did it.
Just to get the visual clear, so how deep inside was he, you said?
He would be at least 3 to 4 feet inside.
And had he passed out, or he was just not unable to move?
No, he had not passed out.
Okay.
You see, there is a drill which I teach and which is taught the world over, and I teach it across. Even now, whenever people at HMI or something, your embryo position.
Oh, yes.
What is this doing? This is creating an air pocket. Even as you are falling, if you can create an air pocket, and when you panic, you breathe faster and you spend more oxygen. So there is a certain training required to panic less. I can't say don't panic. Panic less. And use this pocket which will last you about 10-15 minutes, hopefully. I have fallen. I have used this in Mount Comet in 1983. I was declared dead. I was pulled out of an avalanche after 15 minutes in 1983 by a Sherpa. I was attempting that world record, 3,000 feet of a vertical ice climb on the west face of Mount Comet. And an avalanche came and my whole team was blown off. And I was the one who was buried. But there was a more experienced mountaineer than me, a Sherpa. And so coming back here, what is covering him? The snow and ice which has not been able to take its weight, his weight. So if this is the ridge line, this is the cornice. You can spotlight me if you can't see. This is the cornice.
Stop the screen sharing.
If you...
Okay, I'll stop the share.
I can spotlight also.
This spotlight kar lo, then I'll show you. Because this part, now this is the ridge line where my finger is. This is the windward side, this is the leeward side, so the cornice will build like this. Now the snow is here, you don't know where the ridgeline is. If you start walking here instead of here, at some point the ice and the snow on top of it, maybe 10 feet of it, cannot take your weight. For you, it's a beautiful curve. You don't know where the actual ridgeline is. So instead of my middle finger, you start walking where this finger is moving, my ring finger. And when you fall, what will happen? 3-4 feet of snow and ice on both sides of you will fall with you, like when a bridge breaks. That is what is covering you. And depending on how much you fall, depending on the configuration that side, more snow and ice will. So how do you reach a man who is 4 feet below you, if not more? If it's 10 feet, it's a very major problem. I'm talking of feet. How do you reach a man 4 feet without endangering yourself? So you have to tie yourself, you have to be anchored with a ice axe dug into the ice, so that if you are swept, that rope and that anchor will hold you. Like you anchor a bridge with steel wires on both sides, that thing. Or you have 3 men holding a rope, 1 man going. So it sounds very simple. But to go down even 4 feet, I don't remember whether it was 4 or 10. I am taking the minimum. To go down 4 feet in open, this is not a crevice, it's open. How do you go? How do you save him? And lastly, how do you pull him up? I can barely pull myself up at, now I'll start calling it 19,500 feet. Now that I've seen that certificate. And I've got another guy who's, imagine the psychological state of the survivor. But the good part is when you tell him, chalo, superhuman energy of saving himself, even on your back, he will. So I don't remember, but we have survived. Now to come back to this part, I'll go back to the screen. Forget it. I won't go back to the screen. So you're clear on that. Now when you reach there, this firing which Brigadier Khanna has spoken about happened well after 3rd June morning. Whether it was next week or next week, I don't know. Remember, 77 days is the time frame I'm talking about.
Yes.
Now, they are wanting to attack. They are firing on you. And by the way, they had RPGs. That is the earlier version, the Russian version of anti-tank handheld rockets. We also had them then, they are obsolete now, and they are about, say, 5 feet long with a huge rocket and a tail fin. So we recovered many rocket tail fins which are there in the battalion, and some of us got some as personal souvenirs, and as my children were growing up, I decided to not have them anymore in my house. And I told you, they were firing 12.7 mm ACAC bullets. I had kept them in a small case. And what were we firing? 7.62 mm SLR, which is a rifle you know about. Notice the difference.
Were they firing this right from the beginning or in the middle of the...
Right from the beginning, sir. The point is they were faster, better prepared, better dug in. We beat them because of Brigadier Khanna's quickness of response. And by the sheer grit of moving in what appeared impossible of the men under him. Right from the beginning. And I told you, when you see there is no lady here on the group live chat now, you wet your pants. When you compare a 7.62 bullet, which looks like a bacha, it is lethal. Today we are firing 5.56 after all studies that it is adequate. Today, the standard bullet is a 5.56 bullet. Then 7.62. And this fellow is fine. Why? Because he'll hit the rock will break. And the splinters will hit us, etc. And rockets to blast. You will die of concussion, which is what happened with me. And luckily I didn't die. when I was declared dead. Now, first to come to this, we realized that the configuration of the ground will not, will you spotlight me please?
Yeah.
So, the other webinar is going, I have to speak softly. My wife is conducting the, can you hear me clearly now?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll speak at this volume. Remember this configuration, my side is steep, their side is slightly more benign. Despite that, we were getting bombs. Why? A mortar bomb does not follow a oval. And when you talk of a parabola, which means it's the low start trajectory and the falling trajectory is steep. The starting trajectory is like this, the falling trajectory is like this. This is a parabola. So when you fire 20 bombs, you will get 2 of them on my small 4 feet ledge where my tent is. 3 tents are. So I said I have to hit them, and I have to hit them with small arms. And I had asked for sniper rifles then, which came up within a month. So the time frame when I killed them is at least by logic a month. I said I was in the Shikar Club in IMA Dehradun, there are Russian rifles. And then later I was told by Brigadier Khanna and others that the higher headquarters, that is General Hoon, actively helped. And what did I get for a sniper rifle is a 303 sniper rifle. This 303 is something today you don't even see with your Maharashtra police, the outside constable, the outermost chap. You might see it with NCC or something, if at all, I don't know. It's a World War I rifle. But it's a good rifle. And I got 50 rounds. Normally you talk in terms of 1,000 rounds, but in snipers, every bullet counts. So I was given the large number of 50 rounds. I had to zero my weapon without a range and on a makeshift opposite target and then fire. So when this weapon came up, I used to strip. I had a mattress kapok, which is standard winter clothing, not special clothing. It is issued even in Leh, it is issued even in Shillong. Anywhere where there's snow, you're issued snow clothing, ECC clothing, extreme cold climate clothing, which is Leh and Shillong also. It is also issued in Dalhousie, Dharamshala, Palampur. There are not everybody, but there are sets there. So this is a rubber lining. A kapok is a kind of warm cotton, and then a cotton lining, and then a button bed cover on this mattress, or on this mattress cover of khaki color. And that khaki was what helped me camouflage myself. In the interim, Ram Meher had been shot. Let me cover his part now. In the firing upon us, my MMG man, Harsh Singh, whose normal diet was 14 chapatis, and I would be happy if I could give him 6, because we took a whole day to cook. 2 men cooking for the whole day for 8 men. Out of 8, 2 used to be only for cooking. Harsh Singh was my MMG man. He was exposed slightly the maximum. The second man was me and my radio operator. My radio operator took a bullet which would have been meant for me. It was a 12.7 mm ACAC bullet. It was here, just where your C5, C6 is, cervical, the spine part, where the cervical meets the thoracic. Now with my thing, and it is given somewhere, I had given this in an interview in the Silver Jubilee in 2004, so it was published in the papers there, and Brigadier Khanna has included it in the book from there. How do you now do things? How do you disinfect it? The answer is very clear: by urinating upon it. You have to know this. Your mind has to be working when you see a bullet wound. There is mental paralysis. So I urinated, and I used to carry a jackknife. A jackknife is that's Victorinox Swiss knife of today. Just imagine its version 100 years ago. That is the version that we had. We were issued in 1975 in NDA, and I used to carry mine like a souvenir, and that is what helped. It is a very heavy, very, very poor version of the Victorinox Swiss knife, but the concept is the same. The Victorinox Swiss knife is a modern day avatar of the jackknife. The jackknife has a knife, a bottle opener, a poker, just three things. So you cut open the wound. How do you cut it open? With what? With the jackknife. The jackknife is used for anything and everything. So how do you sterilize it? On a candle. How do you prevent the candle from snuffing out in the breeze? By asking a guy to sit with his legs, knees open and creating a place where the candle can burn so that you can put the knife on top of the candle. And before it can cool down, you quickly wipe the suit off and cut. So when you say that you render first aid in 5 words, it involves this and a lot more. And
So,
what if I touch his spinal cord and paralyze him for life with a rusted jackknife? What if he loses his memory or becomes a pagal because I'm touching the spinal cord? That much I know. But I also know that I cannot leave the bullet embedded here. This man cannot be evacuated on a stretcher. As it is, he has to go by night. There is no day movement possible. What will happen? My first thing is to stop bleeding. So you piddle on it, stop bleeding. Collect your own wits in about 30 seconds, 1 minute. What next? You decide to take out the bullet. God's benevolence, him through these hands, I am only an instrument. The bullet comes out. I put swabs, close it, bandage it in a trance, using all my NCC, NDA, interest. How do I bandage it that he can move his hands to clamber up and down as he will need to when he walks? And he has to walk for 6-8 hours and yet remain alive, yet lose no blood, yet this part should not move. God did it through these 2 hands.
So just once repeat the reason for...
I'll lose the chain of thought.
Okay.
And then you realize that I am, of course, emotionally drained and physically drained. So what about this guy? So to my chest, vest was stitched, and I had got it stitched with everybody, 1 chocolate. 1 chocolate is almost a day worth of, I have been asked to be a little slower because I'm disturbing the other webinar my wife is conducting. 1 chocolate is enough calories for a full day. So I take that chocolate out from that stitching on my vest, because you never changed vests. I break it and put it in his mouth. Now it is so cold that he can't. So you heat the chocolate over that candle and with the suit, put it. Now it is softer, meaning it is not molding, but it is not brick, stone brick. Now he can eat it and get some energy. So piece by piece. And now this guy is bandaged and he is moving back. This is at OP Hill, 300 meters ahead of 5705. And then it goes. On the telephone, that 5 telephones on 1 cable WD wire, the information goes. And then this is 1 episode. Yeah, now please ask me.
No, I was just again because this is obviously a very, very dramatic piece. I want to understand the need to urinate on him. Just could you repeat that part? Like when you saw him, you need to urinate on him to stop the bleeding. But was there any other alternative?
You tell me.
No, I'm just asking, like when you construct.
In my judgment, as the man on ground, how do I? It's not to stop bleeding. Urinating is to clean the wound, not to stop bleeding. How? When there is a bullet with you, it's not a decent scene, please. I'm sure. I mean, you can extend your imagination to understand when a bullet enters, it's a neat hole. It's a neat hole, just as thick as this pencil. Oh, here it is. Just as thick as this pencil. Where it exits. Why? Because the bullet spirals. Why does it spiral? Because there are grooves in the barrel. Why are there grooves in the barrel of the gun? To give it stability during flight. So the bullet is spinning. And that spinning energy gets into your tissue. Like when I'm shot up, the entry of the bullet is a neat pencil hole. The exit of the bullet is muck. Everything comes out. And luckily it was just there both. It was not a separate entry from here and exit from here. So how do you clean it? There is no water. If I use ice, I will deplete his body heat further. And what if it doesn't melt quickly enough? Wahi par baraf jam jayegi, adding to my problem. So the standard answer is, and I've done it even later in 1996 in Kupwara district, where I had to bleed on an officer, when I had to do it with another guy who was hit. Urinate to clean the wound. So the moment you urinate the muck of inside your body, all the flesh, tissue, blood, broken bone, because of the pressure, and urine is warm.
Yes.
Now you can use a swab tuck, to stop the bleeding. Now you can spit on it to clean, or if I may say to sanitize the wound. But the initial cleaning, what do? You use a fire hose or a garden hose to clean a dirty wall. It is the same analogy. After this firing, which was on, I've told you now about Bhuiya's rescue on 5705, which is before 2nd June. I've told you of the capture of OP Hill. I've told you it is a capture. Technically, you can call it an occupation with hindsight. But when we went in, it was not occupation. And then you will, this Ram Meher, his shooting up and his withdrawal. Now the last incident, which is about this firing where I killed that man, which is mentioned here on page 92. A better account of it is on page 102, but the context is not so. On page 102, sixth line, it says, our position was dominating. With due respect to Brigadier Khanna, my perception is that our position was not dominating. We were at equal height to them. And the advantages, disadvantages of this I have brought out. But he's right in the context that it was dominating to afford us a view. When I showed you the map, into the western side, as we looked at that map, to the left side of the map, don't call it western, west side, to the left side of that map, which was a view which we could not get without being on Gyungla Ridge. So to that extent, it was dominating, yes. So, and then he says, effective small arms and mortar fire forced the enemy to vacate without launching a physical assault. So I have given you my version of it, that there was very much a physical assault. It was not a walk in Hyde Park, London, that you go and occupy that place.
So which page are you referring to? Sorry, which page are you referring to?
I am referring to page 102, line 8.
Oh, 102. Oh.
Line 8. Effective small arms and mortar fire forced the enemy to vacate without launching a physical assault. 1 officer and 12 OR of Pakistan were killed by our small arms and MMG fire. I have already told you where Brigadier Khanna says 2 were shot and killed by our MMG, personally fired by Captain Sanjay Agarwal. So actually it was killed by the sniper that I had fired in this case. My MMG guy was very good. Huh? He was a AXI as a Lance Naik. That is a instructor, qualified instructor on machine guns. But these casualties that we are talking about now, Nabil Khan and the others, Captain Nabil Khan, were by my sniper rifle.
So,
now,
sir, this point where you say you convert the medium machine gun to anti-aircraft role because you were obviously expecting the rescue chopper to come in.
Yeah.
So, but this
okay, we will come to this. There is one step before this. Now, second, third night, I have occupied that place. I have requested for a sniper rifle. Thanks to everybody's support. The Shikar Club IMA rifle, no, but a 303 with 50 rounds comes up to me within a month. So now we are either end of June or early July. I have zeroed my rifle. I am firing. The fire is effective. The moment they know that there is a sniper this side, they are trying their best, because they on a ridge line. There is no place I can say to somebody, move, observe like we do on the LOC on Pakistan. You observe from 100 meters left or right. You can't observe from 5 meters left or right. You can't observe from 3 meters left or right. You are on a knife edge ridge line. So how does a sniper or an MMG chap fire? Because your firing position will be known. And we did not have our Carl Gustavs or RPGs with us. The Pakis had them. And they were firing them on us. And we have the record of POF tail fin of the Paki rockets kept with our unit, because I had got them back. I used to send them back with the ration team which used to come up. Their mortar rounds which used to fall, the tail fin has the Ordnance Factory marking. So it's POF, Pakistan Ordnance Factory. We would send them back. Ration de gaye, ye le jao. Small incident I'll tell you here before I come to this part. What is the biggest giveaway of habitation and location? Crows. And even in that altitude, because being a mountaineer, you can have crows. So I was very clear that my garbage disposal, whether it is human excreta or the tins or whatever, has to be very correct. That was a challenge. Okay, now coming back to this. When I finally killed this guy, how did it happen? So let's not use the word killed, because I fired, a guy fell forward. And I've told you this, so he tumbled about 3 to 4 feet. Imagine me, who is watching this through a sniper scope, and the moment he falls 3 to 4 feet, you go out of sniper scope range. So what do? I lower my rifle, I'm watching, and my radio operator is watching through the binocular. Mar diya sab, mar gaya. I can see with naked eyes, he can see through binoculars. They have a 6 degree or a 4 degree range. A sniper scope will have a 1 degree range. What happens? Maine kar diya. Obviously, I'm a self-trained sniper. The army has not trained me as a sniper. A second human being puts a knee down, comes down, picks up this. And by the picking up, I can say, लगता है शायद ये तो मर गया है. Otherwise, that guy would also help in his own extraction. And this guy takes him back. What superhuman strength. When I told you about me rescuing Bhuiya, here is the Paki guy doing the same. Hats off. And in my excitement, oh, isko bhi to marna hai. And I shoot. I say, yeah. So what do I report back? This is what you are reading on page 102. In the first paragraph in italics, it is there. There are 2 casualties, out of which one is fatal. Captain Nabil Khan, Asgar Force, was injured, and a Puma coming on the way up. What did I report? This is key to establishing the credibility of 19 Kumaon in the eyes of the higher headquarters, which were being painted, whatever they were being painted by sector headquarters. Sanjay Agarwal reports on the phone 1 casualty, feeling happy or whatever. एक को ठोक दिया है. अब ठोक दिया है मतलब मर गया कि नहीं मर गया, एक को ठोक दिया है. So the message goes, and the battalion reports it up and up. In 15 minutes, back comes this italics message, which is there in the book on page 102. 2 casualties, and this is what I've quoted in my interview in 2004. And that is where it is there. There are 2 casualties, 1 fatal, Captain Nabil Khan injured. And there was orders of the Asgar Force. That's how I came to know. That first time. And now it took a month to get me the sniper rifle. It must have taken me days to zero it. I cannot spend too many rounds. I have a total of 50 for my entire life. Each round is worth. So it is well into July. I was there till August. That I come to know, oh, it is the Pakistani para-commandos that I'm facing. Good. It is the Asgar force. Nabil Khan is the guy who is injured. He is the second guy who has, that means the first guy is dead. Second guy is coming and I'm being ordered to convert my MMG into ACAC role, into anti-aircraft role. Because the Puma will come, the map I showed you from the left of the map, it will come. So you fire on the ACAC role. Now understand that even if the fire is ineffective, it has a great prophylactic role and puts a sense of caution on the enemy side, whoever is there, us or them. If our chopper is under fire, whether or not it is hit, we will be very, very careful with chopper operations. We might not fly there, which is an aspect Brigadier Khanna had brought out to you. Now, once this happened and the chopper rescued Nabil and went away, somebody wisely thought, why can't we give this boy surface-to-air missiles? So I am told that these were from 502 AD group or something. From Mathura, missiles were moved. 2 missiles and 2 men. 1 man died en route. 1 man with the missiles being carried by our men were pushed up. Where is Mathura in UP or wherever they came from? I can't vouch for that. But they came into Kashmir, into Ladakh, into Siachen, and they came up to my post. The second man died in the process of moving. I do not know which portion of the trek he died on. So I land up with 2 missiles. And at that stage, if this is a missile, if this is a missile, I do not know whether the munition will fire like this or it will fire like this. That is the level of knowledge I have. That is a fact. So what happens? My adjutant, Captain Samuel, I tell him, I had known nothing about this. So they get orders on telephone, which are relayed to me on that 5 telephones and 1 telephone line. With that antique telephone, you do this. And if you break this seal, the battery will come on. Then the missile has to be fired. Because then the battery life is about, within 10 seconds, you have to fire it when you activate the lock-on mechanism or something or the other. And so when the time came, second time, after this incident is over, maybe a week later when another Puma must have come, I would have fired on it. And the first missile went bonkers, it went totally somewhere else. The second missile followed the Puma behind a hillock. We are now into August. And Brigadier Khanna has left towards the end of June, if I remember correctly. 24th June or whatever. So when they ask, no, helicopter gir gaya hoga na, headquarters is pressing. So I tell Sammy, sir, मैंने ये बोल रखा है, झूठ बोला तो मरा, विधवा बनानी है तो झूठ बोलो. I will report what I see. And hats off to this adjutant who withstood the pressure. Because everybody wants you somehow to say, we've shot a chopper. I am and my 8 men and the post behind me, 5705, are the only eyes which can report it. And nobody will contest. But I said, what I have seen, I have seen. So the credibility of the battalion is established when the battalion reports 1 casualty by a sniper fire from OP Hill to the Pakis. 15 minutes later, the signal intelligence intercepts tell you through the Div sector battalion headquarters, 2 casualties, 1 fatal, Captain Nabil Khan injured, convert Puma to ACAC role. That means this battalion does not lie. Now questions. Brigadier Khanna sir, would you like to add anything on this?
I'll just remove the spotlight.
I would say that Firstly, I was in the meantime studying that terrain maps you had sent me. I
Sir.
think all the markings are off a little.
Could be, sir.
So, we can discuss that later.
Sir.
Then I don't know, because you were the man on the ground. As far as I remember, and as far as my notebook and other things say, and based on the book, the missile had come during my time. It was fired during my time. And the person who fired it was a recruit. And that was the first time he had fired a missile.
That recruit was me.
No, I mean the person who was carrying it, even from the unit, if he was to fire, he was a recruit. Who fired it, that's a different thing. And he had never fired a missile before. And this happened during my time there. That means obviously it happened in the early parts of June. But anyway, that is immaterial as far as the facts are correct. Otherwise, the missile was fired. They had casualties, Pakistanis. Puma did come up, and
So just to get the surface to air missile, what is it, like a Stinger or is it like a bigger setup? Is it like a shoulder
no,
fire?
it's a small little thing. It's a handheld shoulder.
So like a Stinger missile.
Fired weapon.
Okay, Kabir, I will answer you because I have held it to my shoulder and fired it. Imagine a
Sam 3, I think it
bamboo,
used to be called. Sam
which
2 or
is
Sam 3, you know
a
what it is.
bamboo which is 5 inches in diameter, long,
Okay.
with a trigger structure in the middle of it.
So
It is heavy.
exactly.
It is put on the shoulder. It has an eye sight and it has a crosshair. I'm talking of the SAM 7. That's the only missile I have fired. And the Stinger and all is all academic knowledge for me. So you are required to point it correctly and get the crosswire onto the correct place and then fire it. And if you've got the missile firing in the right direction rather than behind you, then the missile will go, and in its final stages, the missile will track the heat source and hit the target. It is shoulder fired, weighs about 15 to 20 kgs. I mean, that can be checked on the internet. About 15 kgs should be it. That's
and the out of the two people who were bringing it, one died, and the second one survived and brought it to you.
No, where I have said none of the air defense people could come up, and Brigadier Khanna has also clarified that it was a recruit from the battalion. Like I said, that one died earlier, or one developed a disease, HAPO or something earlier. It's very simple in high altitude, please understand. You want to go, I am deployed there. I just have to say, I am uneasy in my chest. But sir, I will stay on. The CO cannot keep me there, even if he knows I am shamming. Because tomorrow if I develop HAPO, high altitude pulmonary edema, so that man, chest pain, one man got knocked off. The second lone man with Kumaoni boys carrying the missile died. So the missile was got up, as Brigadier Khanna confirms, by Kumaoni boys, my battalion boys, up to me. And as I have clarified to Brigadier Khanna's this thing that a recruit fired it, that recruit was me. Having got the orders to fire on telephone from the adjutant, Captain Samuel.
Okay. And only two came up.
Yes.
So just 1 minute. I'll just try and get this to know visually. Can you see this screen?
You have to click share screen.
I did that.
So click the screen that you want to share and then say share.
Yeah, it's not showing me. One sec. I'll just take a I'll do it on my phone.
Now, if you want, I can help you. It will happen here as well.
Okay, just like I just Google Stinger to show what it
Okay.
looks like.
Yeah, I'll get it.
So like this, sir.
No, can't make out unless you spotlight it.
Just spotlight it.
Okay.
So something like this, like a shoulder carried.
Okay, so I will Google a Sam 7 and show it to you.
Okay.
Wait, where's the problem? Just Google, put images Sam 7.
Yeah, that's what I'm just doing.
Sam 7.
Yeah, SAM, standing for Surface to Air Missile.
Yes.
In what picture you have shown me, the pistol grip is too much on one side.
Mm-hmm.
If I remember correctly, it was 60-40-ish, not 90-10-ish.
Oh, okay, okay. Yeah, there is one like that.
Yeah, got it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, understood. Yeah, understood.
Is it this one, sir?
I have told you about the fact that we were expecting counterattacks when you had asked me yesterday.
Yes.
Yeah, so you got the SAM 7 pictures now. There you
Yes.
are. It is in the somewhat in the center, 60-40, as I was showing you.
Okay.
As I was telling you, rather. Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
So yesterday when we spoke of motivation, I had mentioned to you this fact that I am going to die defending this post. Remember the glorious history of this regiment and the advantages of a defender. And the moment you have your back to the enemy, you will get slaughtered, etc., etc. And the final thing was, मैं तो यहीं मरूंगा और जो भगा मेरा भूत तुम्हें जिंदगी भर सताएगा. Now, as rightly I can see Arnav had a spontaneous smile, which is very natural. But believe you me, it is these earthy grassroots things which click in battle. A simple thing. Every night you go out, डर तो लगता है. तो डरपोक हर रात मरेगा. बहादुर does not mean brash. Bahadur does not mean brash. You are prudent. You are taking all precautions. You are prepared well. But you will die only once. Yes, please.
Were there any, I mean, at the top of 5705, ahead of Bhuyan's post in this time, because you were so isolated from, let's say, the base, for example, there was a lot of time at hand that you had to spend with the boys. Were there any cases where you had boys hallucinating, or, you know, you have mentioned the motivation, but there are times when perhaps your own motivation might have shaken or something. There would have been a moment when you're in and out of it.
I have told you, Tanmay, that I was spiritually initiated, Diksha, as we call it in Hindi, in 1972. And believe you me, these things help in life. Whatever your faith, as long as you have a faith. And there is osmosis between you and your troops. We are living on a ledge in a total area of about 10 feet, 3 tents. So whether you do some breathing or whatever you're doing, each step you're taking, you are this thing. And this hallucinating part, let me tell you, Kumaunis are very superstitious. So when the night storms happen, the wind blows like a banshee. Banshee is chorel in Hindi. So if you allow troops' imagination to go in that direction, you will have a disaster. सर वो फलाना मरा था ना, उसके भूत आए हैं सर, मुझे वो दिख रहे हैं सर. But since with 5 years of service you understand your troop psychology, you keep them on the positive side. Number 1, I will survive. Number 2, my buddy will survive. Number 3, in doing so, I will sort out the opposite side. So if you channelize energies, and yes, there would be, then Harsh Singh and my radio operator, they would be sources of inspiration to my men. And my men, 8 men, were the dirty dozen. They were not a random section as built up as a homogeneous section, which is something very intelligent that the commanding officer, Brigadier Khanna, had done. So there are bad guys in it, guys who've got a not very blemishless discipline record maybe. I've done the same everywhere. Wherever I've gone, in Kupwara, Handwara, operations in the Northeast, my QRT people used to say, and he chap said, साहब ये जिंदगी का सबसे बड़ा इनाम है कि मेरे जैसे जेल खाए हुए आदमी को सीओ को गार्ड करने का मौका मिल रहा है. And in that Naga insurgency, my driver was a Naga. Columban was his name. 1999. I said, मेरी जिंदगी तेरे हाथ में है, खुल के बोल रहा हूँ, सबके सामने. And my Subdar Major was against. But then, human nature, when you trust a guy, unless he is of course third rate, he will repay your trust with compound interest. He will die before he lets you die. They don't. Yeah.
I have a different sort of a question. Like at this point of time, there were thoughts of home. You mentioned that your wife was expecting at this point of time.
Yes.
Did the thoughts drift, and did you recollect anything that?
You see, in the army, you cannot succeed in operations if you cannot compartmentalize. And unfortunately, that bad habit is with me even now. The proof is 3 times my wife has come and told me, speak softly, you're disturbing my webinar.
Right.
I'm so involved with you that I'm oblivious to anything around me. And that contributes to the success of the operation at hand. However, it is a negative when you talk of a whole life, a work-life balance, which is a phrase created after 1984.
Right.
So the point is, if you start thinking about family, you're doomed. The only thing you should think of is, I will be better than the enemy. When I as a senior major started practicing to fire without aiming. I told you I was a self-trained sniper. This is in my early life. In 1995, I realized I am in Kashmir. I will have to fire in the Nala. The Afghan terrorists from ISI will be on the opposite side. So I started training in firing without aiming. And I reached a stage where I can fire at 75 yards even today with an 80% chance of a hit without aiming. It's called natural alignment. And I demonstrated this as a brigade commander on a rocky river. I used to still practice as a brigade commander. Once a month I would go and practice. So the thought there to answer you is professional excellence, and then the prayer, Lord, may the better soldier survive. And I'll give my skin, my blood, everything that I am the better soldier. And this is what I've told our men. May the better soldier survive. It's a fair prayer. God will not refuse this prayer. I'm not saying make me survive. Make the better soldier survive. I will make myself a better soldier. The more I bleed, the more I sweat in peace, the less I will bleed in war. And God has been very kind. I have not had a single casualty, though there is a statement in the book which is not meant to be what it says, but gives an impression that there was a casualty with me. It is not meant like that. I fully understand it. But I have this record in my life. I have never, ever lost a person under my command. There is a statement in the book when he talks about, this one was saved, but page 102, fourth last line. Page 102, fourth last line. The only surgical equipment I had was my jackknife. I heated it with a candle flame for sterilization before digging it into his body to dislodge the 12.7 mm bullet. Thereafter, Lance Naik Ram Meher walked to base camp in the dark. There was no way we could evacuate. Stretchers were out of question. We had to give him energy so he could walk. Chocolates came in handy, melted, dropped. Oh, I've given it here. I had forgotten this. Instant cool action by so-and-so saved his life. Sipahi Jagdish Chandra was not so fortunate. Now this incident possibly is the one at 5705 at the post behind me. So when we talk of military leadership, तन और मन दोनों को सात्विक रखिए. Remember, Buddhist monks are also excellent fighters. They are not just helpless, powerless monks. They know martial arts. In fact, many say that some martial arts, the genesis is from the flagstaff, the lathi of the Buddhist monk. They knew self-defense. So the thoughts cannot be dissipated to thoughts of family, to thoughts of anything. They will only succeed in frittering away the mental concentration required to do that what appears impossible. And the good part is a lot of Faujis, most of them live up to this difficult task. It is not unique. Yes, some of them fall. Like I also said, war does not have the power to change. War only makes plain your character till it is clear for all to see. In civil life, you can build a facade and live a facade. In war, the facade will slip. It's not that you suddenly become good or bad. The inner goodness or badness becomes plain to see. Next, please.
So within
Sir,
the book,
go ahead.
No, after you. Go.
Sir, there's a moment in the book, I think this is when you all were doing your 630-kilometer trek, where I think while zeroing the weapons, 2 mountain goats were shot. And it's an interesting line in the book. It says that the men rejoiced because this was the first time they were having meat after a long time. Could you just share that encounter? Can we hear that in your words?
Khanna sir.
Yeah. Tell me again.
Sir, there's a moment in the book which says that while the trek was being done, 2 mountain goats were shot while the men were zeroing their weapons. And there's an interesting line, like an aside, which says that the men rejoiced because that was the first time they were having meat, I think, since crew.
Absolutely right.
Could you share that encounter?
And they were shot by me personally.
Okay.
We used to practice every now and then whenever we got a chance to zero our weapons at all the heights where we were arriving. And in the process, I also used to keep my firing capabilities in line. And one day, while on a patrol, I saw 2 mountain goats on a vertical cliff about, it must have been 200 yards away from me, and about at least about 300-400 feet higher than me. That's the time I used my firing skill, and those mountain goats got shot there, got killed, and they came down. And fortunately for us and for the battalion, that was the first time people had fresh meat after a very, very long
time. Tanmay, you're on mute.
Yeah.
So I have a question. Yes. Now that we have spoken so much about the operation and the intricacies involved there, I want to take it back to crew, where I saw so many pictures in the book where the men and ladies are interacting like they're one bunch, they're one family. And you had mentioned that they had moved to a separated family location while the march was on towards Leh, etc. And there's a little mention of the ladies who had no idea where their husbands are going. It was just like a blanket thing that they're going for an exercise, for example. What was their reaction while you were leaving and probably when they came back? And was there any communication happening in between through letters? I want to know the personal side of the 2 gentlemen here.
Yes. Actually, my wife was also there in crew, and she had to leave to go and put my son in the school he had got admission in Lawrence School, Sinar, and she went with him, and I don't think she came back ever because she knew that we were out in any case. And that was during my absence, she had gone. I don't remember the month of the dates. It must have been sometime in April or May, when the school start. Uh, all the families were dispatched way back in February, when I was given an inkling that we might be uh, given a task somewhere out, and an important task. With the result, when I start recalling the people from from leave and from temporary duties and courses to make up my strength, the families were also asked to leave and go back to their homes, which is quite normal. In a field area, as a special case, we were allowed to have some families, and more field areas were being opened to the families to come and join them for a short period, not for the permanent location, not as a permanent location. So generally speaking, we never had any elaborate family accommodation in these areas. So we didn't have them. They were all staying in one room. Myself also with my family, I was staying in, I think, 1.5 room. That was the thing. So most of the families, I mean, all the other rank families had gone back. Some of the officers' families had moved back, and there were about 5-6 officers' families who had stayed back. Mrs. Rajinder, whom you had spoken to, she was one of them. And uh, there were other 4-5 families, and they were always, of course, worried. There was a regular communication through people coming up and down, and at times even telephonic messages being relayed from one place to the other, if to lay, firstly from the battalion to the battalion headquarters back to the sector headquarters to lay, and then on to the battalion in the rear. Battalion in the rear, I mean. And I had my Subda Major there, who was responsible to keep the morale up and to look after everybody who was there. So to that extent, some communication was being maintained. And the families told me later that they used to keep their fingers crossed, particularly after this accident on 29th May, when we lost some families, when we lost some men. But because before that, the families were also thinking that, it's like a normal routine move, which the battalion have been going off and on. So nothing to worry about. But once they got to know that an officer had died and a few men had died along with him, they did not know who had died. So they were all worried. In their own hearts, they were keeping their fingers crossed, as they told me. And so thereafter, they got to know that it was a serious business. It was war which was being fought. And obviously, they were worried throughout. But as I said, the Subda Major was looking after them, looking after their needs. Of course, it has to be in a limited extent, but they were being taken care of. And on the 30th of June, I think I left the battalion to go and attend the High Command course. In fact, I was nominated for the High Command course, which is a selection course and a very prestigious course, sometime in the month of March, April. And I had put in an application requesting that I may be, sent to the next course, and I would like to be with the battalion till the time it is on the glacier. So that request went to the MS branch. Between the MS branch and the operational branches, there was no coordination. So I was ordered by the MS branch, which looks after the personnel, postings and training and all that. So I was told to move. I had to move, and my relief had already started moving up, and it was coming up. On the way down, I was in crew for one night. Um, and that is the time that all the ladies got together and they invited me for lunch. So I had lunch with them, and that is the time when they told me all the fears what we were having while we were up. And I, of course, spoke to them and told each one of them that everything was fine, things have stabilized, and now there's nothing to worry. You know, that sort of a thing. Of course, have I
Yeah.
explained it?
Yes.
Have I answered your question?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Okay.
So one detail, you know, we talk about the larger picture, but when you're on the glacier, like Brigadier Agarwal, like if you're on that ledge, okay, which is you saying literally 4 feet wide, and there are your men lying there. What happens to the daily function? What happens to things like? Do you follow a breakfast, lunch, dinner sort of a pattern there also, or is it jab mila khalo, jab who's cooking over there? When a man wants to go and urinate, or in the morning they want to go take a dump, where do they go? I mean, from that ledge, how far do they go? So those little things that we never see in a film. It looks like nobody does their daily functions. How does that operate?
Okay. So
You
I
see,
have answered this part of it right in the beginning, but I will answer it in detail. I have said that you are on a narrow ledge, there is nowhere to go. So whatever you have to do, you do it right there. Number one. Number two, it is so cold that even human excreta will freeze, and there is no question of bad odor. That when the sun comes, it will melt, nothing will melt. That apart. The point is, it is part of army training, and it is up to us as officers to implement it, that when you do a job, your morning job, you dig a hole, do it, and in normal circumstances, you cover it with mud so that you don't leave a telltale smell or a trail for somebody. And also it is environmentally correct. Otherwise you'll have, if there are 2-3 men who are doing potty, there will be flies. If there are 50 men in a camp doing potty, there will be big worms. So you are supposed to cover the latrine trenches that you dig for 100 men and above. And for single men, you put your shovel on the ground, put your foot, take out 6 inches of earth, mud, I'm talking of plains, shit, put the mud back. The same logic you apply in the snow. Yes, there are places where initially somebody would want to go and there is no privacy. So wherever you find a rock, what do you do in civil? If you had to shit in the open, you'd look for a place where there was a tree in front of you, an advertisement board in front of you, or your car or a bike in front of you, so that you can shit in privacy. That doesn't apply. Plain and simple. It's a normal job, everybody has to do it. So there is a corner fixed, and which is the most private part. So people go one by one, and generally people follow, because our body rhythms are such set. There is very little food to eat. So it is not that people will shit when they want to. By and large, your body gets it at the right time. And the right time in some cases could be once in 2 days, because there is no food intake, very little food intake. There is very little fiber. There is very little water, etc. So crapping is in the open, cover it with ice, or if you are doing it in the rocks, well, then put another rock and some gravel on it. That part. Cooking. I have explained it twice. Out of 8 men with me, 2 were fully charged to cook food for 8 men. That means the rest 6 are available for operational duties. Why I have explained that, imagine a tent which is about 3 feet high, 6 feet long, and 4 feet wide. Because you cannot cook outside. We did not have CGI sheets. Forget about any shelters. Otherwise, you would say, like we do on the pavements in Mumbai and Calcutta, put 3 CGI sheets and put your stove in between so it's protected from the elements. We did not have CGI sheets. See, you understand CGI sheets, no?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, those corrugated galvanized iron sheets.
Correct.
So we don't have them. So you have to cook inside a tent. Yes, if there is a rare day where weather is very good and there is at that point of time no breeze, and those guys can take a risk of getting the cooker out, the stove out, and putting it behind a rock. Remember, we are on a ledge. There is no place to walk, which is an operational advantage. I told you, it's a logistic disadvantage, but it saves lives. Out of 20 bombs landing within 15 feet, only 1 or 2 will land on my ledge. And once they do, I will die. So it's a trade-off. And remember, if you, even in a civilian life, I am a life coach, so I talk to a lot of civilian executives, ages between 30 and 45. If you get up every morning with an attitude of gratitude, rather than, there's a cosmet of mine whom in India we had named, whatever his surname was, whatever his first name was, he was called DM surname, and DM stood for दुखी मन. क्या यार इतनी गर्मी हो रही है यार आजकल तो, अब देखो यार बारिश शुरू हो गई, अच्छा यार अब तो ठंड. Camps are held all over the year. In the summer camp it will be hot. In the monsoon camp you will get drenched 10 times a day. Your clothes will never dry. You will always be wearing wet clothes, and you will have fungus in your groin and your toes. In the cold camps it will be cold. So his name was Dukhiman Pathak, and it has lasted till this day. He is retired 10 years ago. I have retired 7 years ago. It's an attitude to life. I will survive, and I will survive with a positive attitude. Why do I say कि 2 ही रोटी मिल रही है खाने को? अरे 2 रोटी मिल रही है ना, इतनी मेहनत से बनाई है इन बंदों ने. हर सिंह को दो, पहले 6 दो, और तुम लोग जिसने बनाई है तुम खाओ. और खाने का तरीका बता देता हूँ, क्योंकि सब्जी तो, the simple thing is, try it today. Put a raw piece of roti and try and eat it. And you are talking of soft rotis made in your house. I am talking of hard rotis, like what you would take out from your deep freeze. Because you're not eating it when it's made, you're eating it 1 hour later, and in 1 hour, you know what happens to a roti at 19,000 feet. So what do? I'll tell you, very simple. You break off a piece of the roti this big and put it in your mouth and forget about it. Saliva will do the rest. Body temperature will do the rest. And the beauty is, eating 2 rotis will take you 20 minutes. So the body will feel full. I have done this in Gori Chen. I have done this in Siachen. I have done this in commandos, where the complaint against me was, Commando Agarwal ne आधा किलो वजन बढ़ा लिया है. ये हमारी कमजोरी है. It was an official complaint. How has this guy increased his weight? Commandos people shed 5-6 kgs. I gained half a kg. This much piece of a roti put and leave it in your mouth. Don't do anything. Saliva will do its bit. And your body, your brain is getting the message, I'm eating. So your brain will get satisfied in 2 rotis. What otherwise you will need 4. It's an attitude to survive happily rather than to crib. Which is why when you had spoken to me earlier, I was so reluctant to talk to you all. And that is the same thing Maya Mirchandani would have told you. I tried to put her off to my best, including saying, you know, what are you going to pay me for it? If you're paying me in lakhs, I don't want you. But then Tanmay came across and I said, chalo, theek hai. The point is, the mental energies have to be leveraged, which we keep hearing in certain spiritual discourses, but we forget when the time of application of those mental energies is required. Have I answered this part about food?
Yes.
And about the movement on a narrow ledge? There is no movement required. You are watching, or you are resting, sitting, ready to react, or I'm telling the men, you try and 1 man at a time in the 3 tents, try and sleep. Because I want you alert at night. I will be alert all the time. And therefore, What today in the business world you call a power nap, in the scriptures we call it yogic nidra. It's so useful. 20 minutes of a yogic nidra is equal to 4 hours of proper sleep. It works. Yeah, next
I
please.
have one final question, which is
Yes, I'll just add a little bit to it that, what we take it for granted, water is available, drinking water. Can you imagine how can you get drinking water at that height and those places?
I
In fact,
covered it
all the
with them, sir.
places
At
where we
that
were
time, you must have been off. I have covered this part with them in detail, sir.
Yes.
Just now.
earlier.
Earlier.
I've just covered it half an hour ago, sir.
Oh, I see. Acha. Absolutely fine. And even drinking water is a problem. And it reminds me of the time when Sanjay was being asked to go up, and he was a quartermaster. He had come up. He was at my location a day before he went up. And we spent the night in one small pub tent. And that is the time I was, telling Sanjay, at night we don't get out to pee outside. We have a tin kept inside the tent itself.
I had mentioned this to you all earlier.
Oh, he had mentioned it? Okay,
Yes, sir,
fine.
on the
Yes.
first meeting itself. Now here, what I had not mentioned earlier, let me tell you now, which Brigadier Khanna, being polite, is not saying. I mentioned the CO is stratosphere, including for officers and especially young officers. I was 5 years of service that time. Sharing a tent with the commanding officer, if you search for 1 million cases of officers staying in a tent, you may find my case, where an officer is sharing a tent with a CO. A CO has a separate tent. Even I as an officer would have a separate tent from the Jawans unless I'm going on patrolling and all. So sharing the tent, which he was focused on the urine part of it in the tin, the baked beans tin. Because I told you that day you can't get out. So what do? You urinate in the tin and push the tin out. And in 15 minutes it will freeze. So there is no danger of spillage. What I am now bringing out to you is an aspect that understand the logistic difficulties wherein if the CO had not shared his tent with me, I would have had to go and share a tent with the Jawans. You can also see this from the perspective of the CO's concern for the morale of the officer. Because it is these small human nature things which endears the CO to the officer. After all, you didn't know Brigadier Khanna. You didn't know how to contact him. I volunteered to get him and you were very worried. Sir, how will you get him? Will you get him? It will be great. I said, don't worry. We share a vibe. It's his book. He'll be happy to speak to you on his book. I am not happy to speak because of different reasons which I have explained. But he is the man. He'll give you an overview which I may not be able to give. Why do I have this respect? Some part of that respect would be due to the fact that here is the man who, to prevent me sleeping in the same small tent with another Jawan, as the commanding officer, today you will say Colonel Saab, as the commanding officer shared his tent with me. And so do we down the chain, eating with the men, Jhootha Khana. On the post, what is it? The Brit army, by the way, stops serving when they go on exercises. Forget war, because they don't go to war. The war they had was in Falklands, 1983. So even when they go on exercises, they stop serving. We don't stop serving, but the bonding comes to a much more practical level. And what Brigadier Khanna just said about his offering and accommodating me in his tent is something I will never forget. Because the circumstance is what I've told you. Next, please.
So I have a question about the opposition, your enemy at this point of time. And this is in retrospect. I mean, you've had the opportunity to meet a lot of army personnel from Pakistan. And I don't know if you had the opportunity to discuss your particular situation in Siachen with them at any point of time. What I'm trying to get at is that we definitely know what happened in terms
Just a
of...
moment. The next webinar call, give me a moment. Yeah, tell me. Tell me. जी पुरुषोत्तम जी बताएं. देख के मैंने कॉल उठा लिया. मैं आपको रिंग करूंगा 2 बजे के बाद. थैंक यू सो मच. धन्यवाद. धन्यवाद. Yeah, sorry for this interlude.
No.
Yeah, you're asking a question.
Yes.
That I have interacted with a lot of Pakistani officers, etc. Yes, I have.
So specific to the Siachen situation in 1984, like we occupied Bilafonla and Siala in the early part of April, and they were caught by surprise. Do you at any point of, I mean, did you have a chance to understand what their strategy was once they knew that India had already occupied these two places to arrive at Gyongla? What was their leadership thinking? How did their men on field, what were they doing at that point of time? Was there anything left for them to salvage after we had taken those two?
Okay, let me answer this in 2 buckets. The answers have nothing to do with my meeting them, because I don't discuss Siachen. And as far as they're concerned, they should be initially concerned. He's just one of those academically sound staff college officers. I don't want, later on they realize that he's got operational experience and all. I gloss over it, because my operational experience will only annoy. And the purpose when you talk to a Pakistani is to build bridges.
Right.
Please understand the larger function. Nobody wants peace more than a Fauji. This side. Their side, war is the reason for existence of the Pakistan Army, as I've just said in another webinar. But for the Indian Army, the people who really pray for peace is the families of the Indian Army, Indian Navy and Air Force people. So when we talk, I have won them over by maturity, not by heroic talk or talk on controversies. If there are 95 controversial topics, I would rather talk of the 5 where I can get into handshake distance with them and thereby narrow the differences and create 3 more situations where we can now talk and maybe resolve 1, etc. So that is my fundamental approach. And I have found good response from the top elite families, including the MD. Like we have a governor RBI. Their governor RBI in a foreign country had the governor RBI from Pakistan. And his real brother was the Major General then. So I had very good relations. I called him home, he called me back home, etc. And only precaution I take is that when I call the governor RBI home, I also call the ambassador. And I also call the host army's chief, so that I am not hobnobbing 1-to-1. Of course, I call the raw chap also. So when I talk to Pakistanis, question part separate. Now, view of the Pakistanis. There are articles by Pakistani authors, including, I have now open in front of me an article dated January 6, 2013 by Shahid Aziz, and he's a rare Paki general, and he's of ISI, and he's very, very candid. So if you want, I can maybe share this article with you, or you can find it from the net, so that now to answer it myself. Please understand that Pakistan Army knows the Goebbelian propaganda and the Orwellian manipulation of population that it is doing. Pakistan Army knows it. The Pakistani politicians know it. The Pakistani elite know it. All of their money is abroad. All of their children are abroad. And if you want to know further, please just type in Ayesha Sadiqa. She's a Pakistani lady. She's presently a researcher in London. And I had reported on her 3 hours after our interview, which Arnab caught immediately during my talk with Arnab. And the beauty was, I am telling him, and then within 10 minutes, he is telling the audience. I am telling him and he's telling the audience from his side. So later on I told the editor कि यार you guys are very good. कहता नहीं sir हम भी इसी article पे लगे हुए थे. I said okay. Ayesha Siddiqa. Second is this guy, the ex-mayor of Islamabad. And the third is Asif Gora. He's in Canada. So these are all Pakistanis which I follow. And they have a very clear, they have a very honest view. And of course, in India, very popular is Tariq Fateh. He's of Pakistani origin. He's very popular in India. The point is on Pakistan, on Siachen. The treaty says LOC runs up to 0.9 NJ9842 and thence northwards. I am quote unquote from the treaty. It is because of the weakness of India and lack of proactiveness, which we have done with Pakistan also, with China also, and brushing transgressions aside, trying to occupy the global moral high ground, that we did not react earlier. The treaty was very clear. Up to 0.98 NJ9842 and thence northwards. So how are you trying to connect it with Karakoram Pass and why? I will answer both. How? By publishing cartographic evidence that it is yours, by allowing foreign expeditions entry into the Saser Kangri area and this general area. Now I'll come to why. Reason is Pakistan has already ceded in 1963 over 5,000 kilometers of the Shaksgam Valley, Shaksgam, Shaksgam Valley, ceded illegal of Indian territory in a Pakistani administrative control north of Gilgit-Baltistan, ceded to China 1963. So Karakoram Pass, Shaksgam Valley, gives them the entry to GB, Gilgit-Baltistan. Siachen, if they get, now they have the western flank of Karakoram Pass and DBO and Depsang Plain. DBO is Daulat Beg Oldie, and the Depsang Plains covered. This is the why of the strategic importance. And there are some reports of whatever mineral wealth may be there, and it will provide depth to Khardungla Pass, which is true. And it's an access route, all those things are there. But you look at the macro view. Whenever you talk of why Pakistan does this, to provide depth to DBO and Shaksgam, which are presently with us, and they want to eat it because it threatens their G219, the major expressway, G219, which is from Lasha in the east to Khashgar in the north. It's about 3,000 kilometers or so. At the lower level, yes, the importance is because it is an ingress route into India. It will provide depth to the defenses of Leh, and Leh will get exposed. Khardungla will become your first line. All that is valid. And of course, the mineral wealth there, etc. How do the Pakistanis view the actual operations? Now I'm getting down in the levels. The Pakistanis view it, and they are very agile. Please understand, Pakistan is a state owned by the army. I have said this on TV earlier, umpteen times in the last 3 years, and it became a statement which was much copied by Dr. Sambit Patra. And very nice of him on 1 or 2 occasions. He quoted, Agarwal Sahab ne aisa bola tha, when he saw me again on the panel on TV. Most countries have an army for their security needs. Pakistan is an army which has a country to sustain the army. And within the Pakistan army, please think Punjab. Pakistani Punjab is the creme de la creme. If you see the sizes of the farmhouses and what they have, etc. But that's deviation. So Pakistan was able to preempt us, buy better equipment and get in militarily, despite lack of motivation at the grassroots level. That's where the Indian army, despite all the kicks we receive from our netas and babus, because of the good leadership within the army, we are unparalleled. Abhi, this movie was made and there was a lot of controversy. See how Bollywood is treating the army. Not well. But that again is an aside. The latest movie on which the Air Force, there's a lot of controversy on the lady Air Force officer and the misogyny that she has spoken about, but you all know more than me about it. Leave that. So Siachen, they did a good job. They had the first mover advantage. Every time Pakistan is underestimating the sheer grit, determination, courage, resilience. 4 words. Grit, determination, courage, and resilience of the Indian Army. Proved very vividly also in Kargil. Proved very vividly on 15 June this year at Galwan. Proved very vividly this year on 29th, 30th August night on Magar Hill, Gurung Hill. So they don't know what to do. And the good part is the Pakistani public, courtesy people like Ayesha Siddiqa, Tariq Gohar, Ajit, his name is Ajit, that mayor's name. They are telling our army can't fight. So the public is against the Pakistani army. I hope you know 2 days ago there has been major unrest in Balochistan against not Pakistan, against Pakistan army. What have they demanded? Army go back, Balochistan. We want, what do they want? Respect for the constitution, freedom of expression. And Pakistan army, you go back, you've killed and displaced thousands of us. So the Pakistan army is not a respected institution, notwithstanding the extreme statesmanship of the previous coup guys, including Zia-ul Haq, whom I hold in high esteem. Look at Pervez Musharraf. He is far better than Indian politicians, Zia-ul Haq, Pervez Musharraf, in hunting with the hounds and running with the hares. Think about it. Hunting with the hounds and running with the hares. They are promoting, last warning for speaking slowly. They are hunting with the hounds, promoting terrorism and getting aid to curb terrorism and using that aid to promote terrorism. Can any Indian do this? You have to be a Zia-ul Haq. You have to be a Pervez Musharraf to do it. So I have a lot of professional regard for their geopolitical handling, their ISI, their handling of the narrative. The entire Kashmir narrative in the world up till 5 years ago was anti-India. The plebiscite demand has been so distorted, you require the world leader on this matter. Dr. Christine Fair, she's a lady who's written on this, who spent 7 years in Pakistan researching the Pakistan army. And then she wrote a book on the Pakistan army and how they function. She is required to tell the world, look, the Indian stand is right. You guys, you are going on the wrong side. Because the world was going on Pakistan's side regarding plebiscite and regarding human rights. Even Joe Biden, when he was a senator 15 years ago, he had scuttled, I have the reference with me if you want, which bill he had scuttled. I have the reference. I have researched it. Today he's a presidential candidate. Kamala Harris has spoken for Pakistan against Kashmir and India. And she's the presidential runner with Joe Biden. And within 2 months, 1.5 months, they have their elections, early November. So Pakistan army is very good at narrative building, at international perception management, at geopolitics. They are not very good on ground. Their special troops, yes. Their jihadi mindset people, yes. When I have fought their jihadis, they will not surrender. They will die. I have had to burn a village to kill 6. They will not surrender. I got shot. My officer got shot. They will not surrender. Very good fighters. Not only very highly radicalized, but very good fighters. These chaps who came in from Afghanistan, from the Taliban. They're very good fighters. As a professional to professional, hats off. There's no doubt. So how has Pakistan handled it? They cannot understand how Indian army can survive like this. कैसे कर सकते हैं? And yet they have managed to not lose it all. Like Xi Jinping is not losing it all. What did he do 2 days ago in the UN General Assembly? Lying through his teeth. China is peace loving. China is peace loving. This is Xi Jinping in UN General Assembly this week. China has no claims on anybody's territories. China has claims on 18 country territory, whereas its land neighbors are only 14. It has claims on 18 countries' territory. And what is Xi Jinping saying in UN General Assembly? China has no claims on anybody's territory. China does not want hot war and cold war. What has China done yesterday? Changed the definition of a journalist in Hong Kong so nobody can report. Only government registered journalists can report. Lying through its teeth. That is what Pakistan is good at. So Siachen is an issue where on ground they are weak, but everywhere else India needs to pull up its act, which India has pulled up its act in large measure. And there are certain areas of concern which are beyond the purview of what you need to know.
Right. My idea was to be very specific about, let's say, the 84 period between when we landed. Like from their side, they had launched Operation Abil. If you have any perspective on what they were doing while 19 was preparing to go up to Gyeongla, it's like the way they occupied it first. So very specific in those periods.
No, I will only say that not only that they have persisted. So for your straight answer to your question is no, because then the sources of that information, a lot of it is not published literature. Yeah. So I will talk to you only on what is commercially, publicly available published literature. So the official answer is no. Okay. Now, September 1987, Pakistanis had Op Qaidiyat. It's there in the public domain. Please Google it and read it. I've given you this. September 1987, they had, because we had Bana Post, Qaid Post. It was Pakistan's Qaid Post. So they had Operation Qaidiyat. So if you want the Pakistani view, this is there in public. Read it.